Hey everybody, it's JJ and we're back again for another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream. Hopefully everybody's having a good Friday, ending out things on a positive and productive footing. For those of you who happen to be on holiday, unlike myself, hopefully you guys have started out your 3-day weekend on a positive, productive footing. And for those of you that are working on the weekend, well, hopefully, it's not too tough. But all the way around, hopefully everybody's doing good. We're excited to go ahead and kick off another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream here this week. We've got a couple of really cool announcements with, of course, the introduction of now finally our latest addition to our AiO series of coolers. So we're going to be talking about this guy right here. This is going to be a brand new TUF Gaming LC2 series based cooler. So I've actually got it set up here. We're going to do a little demo on it. We're going to do some overclocking, go into some temperatures, talk about some cool stuff that we have going on there as far as what's kind of new with this generation with the LC2. We're actually going to be offering two variants with a 240 millimeter base model and then also a 360 millimeter base model. In addition to that, we'll also be following up a prior announcement with the actual ASUS TUF Gaming GeForce RTX 4070 Ti in white. So we'll be talking about that guy as far as giving you guys the confirmed pricing and availability. We then have a brand new mini PC that's actually utilizing the latest generation Ryzen 7000 series based processors. Really excited about those because with what we've been doing in the mini PC side, especially over the last couple of generations, it's really been awesome to see just the level of performance that these really compact mini PCs are offering, where you have everything from, of course, 3 to 4 displays, the latest generation support for PCI Express NVMe, Gen 4 interconnects, 2.5 gigabit LAN, Wi-Fi 6E, right? All the cool stuff kind of baked in, right? So we'll be talking about that. We've also got our latest addition to our ExpertWiFi series of mesh networking-based products that we'll touch on. And then actually a follow-up announcement from a prior product that we originally announced at Computex with our ASUS BE Series monitors. So these were actually a really cool kind of entry-level focused monitor, but that saw an update in terms of the overall ID design. We're actually offering them in a few different colors, and I'd love to see your guys' feedback in terms of what do you think? Do you want to see the other colors that we have in the BE Series lineup coming out? Because I think that they're going to be a great option for those of you that just may be looking for a nice monitor, not necessarily maybe gaming focused, although they do have a higher than standard refresh rate, a great addition to maybe a workspace or maybe for, a normal kind of productivity system. Pretty sweet. So we're going to be talking about that latest update with the ASUS BE Series monitors. And then from there, got a couple of giveaways and, of course, UEFI BIOS announcements. So let's see who we have joining us today here in the stream. We've got JC, man. Give me some love. Thank you so much. Chair for JJ. I know I still got to follow up with our team. I got to get them to give me a chair. We're going to be making our announcement for our next generation chair in the not too distant future, and I still don't have, the SL400, right? So hopefully we can get one for me before the end of the year. We'll see how it goes. Erica, always fantastic to have you joining us here on the stream. So thank you so much. Thanks for letting us know the audio is sounding good. And let me guys know, I actually have the microphone off access right now because I have this test bed set up here. So let me just know if the audio seems a little off or if I want to go ahead and reposition back over just to make sure that everything's coming across clearly. I can go ahead and move the microphone, but just let me know. All right, let's see who else we have joining us here. Skeets is going, I hope these coolers are as well priced as the TUF Gaming monitor. So I think, yes, in relation to saying, are you hopefully that they're going to see a strong value proposition? Yeah, I think actually they have a really solid price point for the 240 and for the 360, especially for the performance that they're going to be offering. Sue Min's also joining us in the stream. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Michael's also joining us, man. Happy Friday to you. And Tech is also joining us here in the stream. So fantastic to have you here. Deb is noting very clear. Sounds good. So overall, I think we're okay. So let's get ready to go ahead and kick things off. And let's talk about, I guess, a few UEFI BIOS updates. All right. So compared to last week, definitely nowhere near as many UEFI BIOS updates. I haven't gone ahead and completed the post for our PCDIY group, which if you guys are not part of and you guys are checking out the stream, make sure to go and check it out. If you're on YouTube, you're on Facebook checking us out, we have a link in the description for our PCDIY group. It's an amazing community, almost 50,000 members of PCDIY enthusiasts. You can find out about the latest and greatest from ASUS consistently there. And I also post our UEFI BIOS release notes about every week there in the group. So anything that we've come out with over the last kind of 7 to 10 days, they'll get posted in a consolidated post to let you know if there's essentially a motherboard that has gotten a new UEFI BIOS. For the BIOS releases that we have for this week, not too many. It's kind of continuation of what we've been doing for the latest generation AMD Agisa rollout, which has predominantly been for AM4, although AM5 motherboards saw a very recent rollout as well. So this would include B550, X570, B450, X470, pretty much any of the motherboards on the AM4 side of the fence has been seeing these updates come out over the last few weeks. And right now we're pretty much almost at the end of all of these AM4 based motherboards. As always, I'm just going to show you a quick example, like one of the boards that got the update. But if you always have questions regarding what should I do when it comes to updating the UEFI BIOS, should I update the UEFI BIOS? How do I do it? All those questions, please check out the FAQ doc that I have written up. It really provides you pretty much, I think, every question that you would ask is covered in that. Really well detailed. It has links to a walkthrough video, which shows you how to go step by step if you've never done it before, and a whole lot more. So again, you can find that in our ASUS PCDIY group. But one of the, I'd say, great models that shows, of course, one of the cool things in terms of the longevity of what we've offered for AM4 is going to be this model right here. So let's go ahead and take a look here at this guy for the UEFI BIOS update. It's going to be the ASUS ROG Strix B450-F. So not even the original, excuse me, not even the second wave model, but the original -F. And I do make a point to this. Interesting enough, I'm not going to call out a competitor, but there were competitors that actually also had similar B450 based models. And some of those actually vendors were not able to offer kind of a contiguous UEFI BIOS update support, because when they release their boards, it's kind of difficult to sometimes know all the spec when you're comparing one board to another. Some users just will compare, hey, the number of slots, USB ports, things along those lines. But there was even a difference in the actual size of what's referred to as the option ROM. So the option ROM is the space where actually your UEFI BIOS is stored. And so there were vendors that actually went with a smaller size UEFI than we did. And this actually allowed us to have really the expensive support from the very beginning of the production of the motherboard all the way till right now, where some competitors actually had to refresh their motherboard with essentially a new version to introduce a bigger option ROM for support. So just is kind of just a little subtle thing that you may not be aware of, where there's always kind of more than meets the eye in terms of kind of when we're designing a product. There's a lot of different things, from just the aesthetic design to the features, the functions, the spec, to even things like the option ROM size support. So if you head over to, of course, the drivers and tool tabs, you get over to BIOS and firmware. You'll see right there, very recent, pretty much as of today, right? So 2023 11, so November 10th, you'll see that it has the latest UEFI with the new GISA there, a GISA 1.2.0.b. So AM4, of course, is already mature. I talked about this last week. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Again, if you've probably been running without any issues, there's no reason for you to update. If you haven't updated in a long time, maybe you're going to consider going to a newer CPU, so a newer 5000 series. Maybe you're on Ryzen 3000 series. Maybe you're on Ryzen 2000 series. Or maybe you have experienced things like USB interoperability and compatibility, which AMD addressed in prior GISA updates, but you've never updated. There might be a reason for you to go ahead and update. But again, if your system's running stable and reliable, no reason for you to update. Again, if you want to see the full list of boards, there'll probably be about 20 boards, I believe, that are in the list in totality. You can check that out in the ASUS PCDIY group when I post it. Okay. All right, so that takes care of us, I think, in terms of UEFI BIOS updates. Let me quickly see if we had any quick questions on that. Hey, Cowboy 3769, happy to have you here joining us to stream. Thanks so much, man. Hey, Chris S. Fantastic, man. It's very nice of you to say. Happy to have you joining us here on the stream, so thank you so much. And then we got somebody saying hi from Facebook. Hi. Happy to have you here on the stream as well. All right, so let's go ahead and see what we got next. I think next up, we've actually got a pretty cool giveaway announcement. So let's go ahead and dive into that. Let me go ahead and bring up the giveaway announcement tab for this guy. And give me 1 second here. Yep. All right. Perfect. So if you guys have not been following our socials, we just recently launched a pretty cool giveaway announcement that we have going on. So this is going to be for Upgrade a Palooza. So it's a pretty big giveaway that's going to be actually in alignment with a lot of our most recent generation products that you can see that we've brought to the market. You can see, of course, a wide range of these noted right here. And of course, this is also in alignment and collaboration with the latest generation chipset launch and CPU launch from our partners over at Intel, with, of course, 14th gen series processors and the refresh of Z790 series based motherboards. You'll see actually here some of the really cool, of course, pricing that we have available. Pretty crazy. You can see everything from 14900K with a Maximus Z790 Dark Hero, We've got a Maxim Z790 formula with a Ryzen 3 cooler. I mean, this combination right here, if you probably just put that combination, that's over $1,000. This probably combo actually, I think, would also probably be probably over $1,000 as well. So two really nice prizes right there. These are also really sweet right here. You can take a look. Z790-E Gaming Wi-Fi 2. That board actually also has native PCI Express Gen 5. It's our most entry-level board that actually has PCI Express Gen 5. The Ryu 3, which is a really cool AiO that we have with 8th generation ASUS based pump. It has a full aluminum actually housing, which is knurled, which feels really premium, really, really nice. You guys can actually check out one of our prior live streams where I did actually some live overclocking with it, went kind of hands-on. It's a really cool design. It has a circular pump head versus on the Ryujin, where the Ryujin has the square pump head. And let me know in the chat, are you team circle or team square? Like, which one do you prefer? In the past, when we've done kind of polling in the community, it's about a 50-50 split. About 50% of people like the square, and then 50% of the people like the circle. So interesting to know there. But you can also see that we've got our latest generation ROG Strix 1000 watt gold Aura power supplies. These are absolutely awesome PSUs, really, really nice quality cables, ultra quiet in terms of their operation, and they are ATX 3.0 certified out of the box. And then you can see right here, Z790 Pro, TUF Gaming LC360, which is the cooler that we're going to be talking about, 4060 Ti. Nice combo package. And then you can even see more here, right? We've got one of our latest generation keyboards, our flagship gaming mouse, Delta S Core, some other cool fan bonus prizes, the Hyperion, an amazing and pretty expensive chassis. It's our flagship, of course, EATX, water-cooled, high-end, air-cooled base chassis, 4070, and then a ultra-high refresh rate XG259QN gaming monitor. So all the way around, all you guys got to do is get in on it, is jump into the applet and jump in on it. This is actually a global-based giveaway, so it doesn't matter pretty much where you are. As always, make sure to check out the terms and conditions if you have more questions on that, okay? Let me go ahead and drop that in there. And we'll go from there. All right, so let me drop that in there. Let me see if any quick questions. So Chris is going, if I just bought the ASUS ROG Strix Z790-A gaming Wi-Fi, do I just download the latest BIOS? I have the 13900K, but I think the latest BIOS was for the 14900K. Yes, so pretty much if you bought Z790, all the Z790 boards from the very beginning already shipped with 12th gen and 13th gen series CPU support built in. Right? On Z790, only the refresh motherboards will have 14th gen CPU support, essentially kind of out of the box. Although we did start to implement 14th gen series CPU support in BIOS updates as early as actually March of this year. So technically they could kind of post with the CPU and then you could update. Now, if you're going to be building the system, I would still recommend that you update to the latest UEFI. There are maybe some conditions if you're getting into very high DRAM overclocking where potentially maybe some of the older UEFI could be advantageous for 13th gen, but for the most part, I would recommend updating. Depending on when you're updating, also, you may have an independent, what's called MEI firmware that you would also want to update. But all the latest UEFI updates, we've actually packaged them together. So before you might have had to kind of update the UEFI BIOS, and you would also have to update something called the MEI firmware independently. But now we've put those two together. So if you update the BIOS, it updates also the MEI firmware. So yeah, if you're putting together your system, just go to the support page, download the latest UEFI, and you should be good to go, man. So best of luck with the build, and thanks for being Team RG, Team Strix. Janny's given some cool feedback, saying some very cool prizes. I agree. I mean, those are absolutely awesome prizes. I mean, the Dark Hero motherboard, the GPUs, our flagship series coolers, flagship series keyboards and mice, the Hyperion. I mean, that's some pretty awesome hardware that you have there. I mean, collectively, that's I would say it's easily over $10,000, right, in terms of actually pricing that's there, right? So let's say Lorenzo says Team Circle, so he likes the circular pump head. Tech, though, is on the other side. He likes actually the square. And then Michael goes, I like both, but I have the circle, all right? And let's see. Janny goes, octagon team. Yeah. So, yeah, it's, there's all kinds of different types of choices. And then, of course, if Justin's still in the chat checking out the stream, Justin's probably going to be, I'm going to be team water block, right? So, but generally, most water blocks are usually going to be kind of more square, kind of not generally rectangular, but probably more square shaped, right? So yeah, but overall, thanks for that feedback. Again, let us know, are you team circle or are you team square when it comes to your preference of AIO based coolers? All right, pretty cool. So that is one of the bigger giveaways that we have going on. So did I drop the chat in there? Yes, I did. Okay, so make sure to go ahead and check it out. Skeets notes the square looks more complete. Yeah, all depends on your kind of your preference, right? I think, you know, for me, I'm like Michael. I like both designs. I sometimes really like the circle, and sometimes I really like the square, and I think they can both look fantastic. I think it also just depends on kind of your preference, the look and feel of your system, the theme, how you're setting everything up, right? There's just different options for different people out there as far as what they're looking for. And then two more we got here is somebody else is also noting for Team Square, and then Cowboy is also on Team Square, right? Alex also, wow, okay, now Square's running away with it a little bit. Alex also notes the square, right? All right. Oh, wow, we've got somebody rocking a Glacial. Glacial, absolutely beautiful motherboard. Of course, that's one of our limited edition high-end Maximus series base boards. It's one big metal square. Yeah, effectively, it is an ultra block. It's just one really big block that is on there. All right, so let's go ahead and keep moving things along. Next update I have is, if some of you guys haven't been paying attention, there's actually a pretty big update that is coming out right now from Microsoft in terms of a new build for Windows. And one of actually the interesting things that is integrated within that version of Windows is going to be Windows Dynamic Lighting. So Windows Dynamic Lighting is actually utilizing something that ASUS has been using for a very long time, and it's in RGB management. It's actually leveraging kind of a standardized protocol of HID management for RGB-based devices. ASUS is proud to say that we are one of the launch partners with Microsoft in actually supporting this protocol support. And you will see an actual update that is right now being rolled out to Armory Crate to be able to enable essentially kind of a good level of interoperability and compatibility. It's important to kind of note, though, that this doesn't necessarily replace your RGB software, regardless if you're using like a third-party software, so something, you know, like Signal RGB or Open RGB, or even Armory Crate itself. The main reason being is that there's a lot of functional elements that you'll find within, let's say, our utility versus what you might find natively within the operating system. The operating system is working from a very basic level to essentially offer some form of unification control for some type of RGB management across different types of devices. So a keyboard, a mouse, and maybe some other components that you might have in your system. But consider things like we just talking about AiO coolers that have screens. You're still going to need actually the manufacturer's utility to be able to customize that screen. Or maybe if you want overclocking controls or fan controls or more advanced monitoring, right? Driver updating, all of these things are now being kind of baked into our system utility. So from ASUS perspective, this doesn't affect the design, the development, and the support and the feature set that we plan to integrate within our current utility. But at the same time, we do want to be able to make sure that we're coordinating with a great partner like Microsoft at essentially enabling interoperability and compatibility and ensuring that our users have access to that should they want to utilize it. So again, if you want to check it out, it's actually a really cool kind of link that you can check out from Microsoft's website that goes a little bit more into Windows Dynamic Lighting, and you can find out some more information about that. And again, if you update to the latest build of Armory Crate, it essentially formally integrates support, and we'll continue to actually be offering more of our devices to be in alignment with support for Windows Dynamic Lighting. All right. So that gives us a little bit of an update there. All right, and let me go ahead and go into our next item here. So, see here. All right. Yeah, I think that should be okay. So I think next up, let's go ahead and jump into, I think, some of the actual new products themselves. So in terms of the new products that we have coming out, let's go and see, what do you guys think? I think I'll probably save the AiO for last because we're going to actually do a demo for that. So we'll do the lighting for that. We'll do the demo for that last. So let's go ahead and go with, let's go with the GPU. Okay. Let me go ahead and bring up some of the quick images right here. All right, so here we go. So first one is going to be the ASUS TUF Gaming GeForce RTX 4070 Ti White Edition. So of course, we already have, of course, a pretty much kind of monochrome version based on the card. Kind of looks like this guy right here. This is, of course, the older version. This is a 30 series. This is a 3080. But in terms of it being a color neutral card, it was ready color neutral. It was pretty much a monochrome kind of black type of card. So you would be good to go in that respect. Historically, we generally only offered white in terms of our higher end models. So with our ROG series, but now we have now updated. They are limited, though. They are not normal production at this point. So do be mindful of that. We'd love to see feedback if you guys want to continue to see maybe options in that. It is challenging to produce a really big ecosystem where you're kind of always duplicating multiple models with different colors. Right now, actually, ASUS is probably the biggest manufacturer in terms of having a dual kind of color ecosystem, and actually even more varied ecosystem when it comes to our components, where pretty much for the entirety of every core component we make a white derivative of it. And not every manufacturer can actually say that. So everything from motherboards to keyboards to mice to monitors to headsets to graphics cards, we've done it all. And that's actually a lot of effort to do that. But that being noted, this will be essentially, like I said, a limited option. We'll still continue to offer the same model. There's no functional difference. The power limits, the PCB design, the VRM, the fans, everything is identical. It's just white. So the cool things, though, is that I think that we do a really great job when we develop our white-based product portfolio. So even things like the fans are going to be white. We still maintain this really nice premium metal shroud that's on there, which is, of course, going to be in white. You also have a white backplate, which is also going to be on the graphics card. The nice, still minimal RGB lighting. So 2 RGB lighting zones that you have there on the graphics card. Of course, your 12-volt high power connector. You can already start to see a little bit of that white backplate that's on the graphics card. The internal ribbing, which actually helps to reduce torsion and flex in the graphics card. So helps to give you nice kind of torsional rigidity that you have in there. Of course, high quality PCB with high quality caps, fully molded alloy inductors. That just means you have a nice, robust, performant based VRM design. Some other things that sometimes people might not be aware of. We are the only manufacturer to unilaterally across every single one of our graphics cards produce them using what's called an SMT production process, which is an advanced robotic production process where the components are placed on through machine. And then there is actually a specialized optical analysis process, which helps to validate that all the components are put on there and things along those lines. So we were the first manufacturer to unilaterally do that. So it doesn't matter whether you buy something as simple as like an RX 760 all the way to a 7900 XTX or a 4090 to a 3050. All of them are produced using that auto extreme production process. Some other little cool things that you actually may not realize that is kind of cool is that we do even kind of take sensible design cues on evaluating how PCB design can cause stress or other kind of, let's say, potential points of failure within a graphics card. Sometimes you might notice that on larger cards, some manufacturers will leave this area larger or more exposed, and that can actually be more prone to actually flex or torsion. It can cause cracking in the underlying actually PCI interconnect. Especially if you're kind of moving your chassis or you're inserting your chassis in and out a lot, right? That can actually be a little bit more prone point to failure, where here we use a tighter radius. So it's reducing the likelihood. Or even things like here, like the AiO bracket, that's actually made out of stainless steel. We're the only manufacturer to unilaterally also use stainless steel in the AiO bracket. Okay, there you can see kind of a nice little exploded view. Static pressure optimized fans with our axial tech-based fans give you really, really nice airflow for that really big, dense heatsink assembly. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be fast. You can go stock. You can go overclock. Of course, you can tweak and tune everything inside of GPU Tweak 3, which is our graphics card utility, which if you guys didn't check out our prior stream, go check that out, where I showed you actually some of the cool things on GPU Tweak, including now the ability to do mobile monitoring, where you can now have all your real-time monitoring show up on your phone or on your tablet in a low latency browser. It's pretty sweet. And then your DisplayPort configuration, display out configuration, which includes DisplayPort as well as HDMI. And this is kind of also a little bit more unique to ASUS. Not every manufacturer has it, but we will have dual HDMI, while some manufacturers will only put one HDMI. Although, of course, you can always adapt DP to HDMI. All right. So there you guys go. That's that 4070 Ti in white. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like the design? What do you think about it? And what do you have? Do you have a black monochrome system, or do you have a white? Or are you in that middle ground, which actually are some of my favorite builds, where they kind of combine the two? Because some people try to make everything all white, but actually I like sometimes having contrast. I like sometimes having some components that are white and some components that are black. Like you might go with black on a lot of components, but inside of a white chassis. And the white chassis will actually allow for more reflectivity for lighting, so it bounces off a little bit more. It can make it seem brighter, which is kind of interesting, but then you have the contrast from the black. So there's different ways to definitely play around with that. Let's go ahead and see any feedback that we might have on there. Hey, GPS, man, fantastic to have you here. Mike Russo is also joining us. I love my TUF Gaming 4070 Ti. Thanks for being Team TUF Gaming. Tech Spirit says, please keep the white color in all your products. We're definitely doing that. Hey, it's E-Rock. Hey, if you guys have not checked out actually E-Rock, he's actually an up-and-coming content creator, done some pretty cool reviews. He'll actually be checking out some of our upcoming TUF Gaming products. So if you guys are not checking him out, go ahead and check him out on YouTube. Follow his socials. He does some cool content. He's actually also recently transitioned from an AMD to an Intel system. So cool to be able to see kind of the two sides of the spectrum when it comes to that. And he definitely has an engaged community where he's actually really responsive. And one of the cool things that you see, not necessarily from every single media or kind of creator out there. So thanks for joining us here on the stream, man. Let's see. Michael says, I like the design of the card. I see the reinforced corners with the CPU. Yep. You actually caught one of those really subtle details that very few people actually catch on in terms of the design of the card, right? Yeah, so Tech Spirit goes, the main issue with the white color is the availability. I've tried so hard to get a white gaming RX 7800 XT, but I couldn't find it anywhere. That's something I have gone ahead and shared with our PM team. So right now we're trying to see if we can pull in some additional allocation. I will say that the allocation that we'll have for the NVIDIA-based GPU should probably be greater. So I think for the people that are checking out this model, it should be a little bit easier for them to be able to pick it up. It will still be in a lower quantity, though, than, of course, our traditional monochrome-based models. But I've definitely passed that feedback on that. I know that we have people right now that are hoping to get that 7800 XT model in white. So hopefully there'll be an update in that maybe in the coming week or two regarding, when we might have that pop back in terms of availability, okay? Alex says, I'm building my new PC right now, 14900K, Z790 Dark Hero, 4090 Strix OC, a Ryzen 3360. So it's pretty much all about the best hardware you can possibly get. 1200 watt Thor, a Hyperion case, but we need ASUS specific RAM tested on boards. Yeah, so we don't produce RAM, but we actually have outstanding DRAM validation. We are actually the #1 DRAM validation partner. We did it for DDR4 and also for DDR5. So whether you want to go with Kingston, Patriot, G.Skill, Micron, Corsair, any one of the manufacturers out there, you shouldn't have an issue. But you do also always have to account for understanding things like the DDR5 port table, how rank and density affect scaling, and how your memory controller, which is inside your CPU, can affect that. If you have more questions on that, I have a really great post in our group that talks about it called DDR5 Insights. We also have 2 dedicated streams that we've talked about that with Crucial and Kingston that talk about it. And then there's also another live stream that I had tips and tricks and insights that we tackled actually how to kind of understand how to do what's called DRAM divider testing and scaling. And if you really kind of want something ROG look, we do actually have ROG certified memory. So there are partners like AData and Gel, which actually offer ROG certified DIMMs, which actually have like a really nice complementary ID design to kind of like, let's say, our motherboards, although a lot of the memory out there looks really great with our boards. But let me see if I can bring up I really like the AData ROG certified DDR5. If I can bring it up right here. So here, Alex, here it is. The image is a little bit stretched out for some reason, so it doesn't look as nice. There you go. That image looks quite nice right there. But you can see, I really like the design silhouette that they have with that little bit of that angle in there. It looks really cool, and that other additional cross angle. So that could be a choice for if you're looking for something. So check that out. All right. So hopefully that answers your question on that side. All right, man. And then we've got, what's that? Michelle joining us. Hey, fantastic. Happy to have you here. We've got Nelson joining us all the way from Florida, man. I'm late for tech class. No worries, man. But thanks for joining us here on the stream. So would it work for my X670-E? I'm not sure if you mean your question, like, would you be able to use that memory, that ROG certified memory on your X670E board? Yes, you can totally use it on there, but still the same things all apply that I talked about. Things like understanding your port table, rank, memory, and density. So a lot of people sometimes have they'll think, oh, I got 4 slots. I can just buy 2 sticks of memory and pair them up in a duplicated set, and that should be straightforward. And it's not, because there's a lot to understand in that respect. So my recommendation always is buy 2 kits and then understand kind of the port table. And if you don't know what that is, again, go back and check out things like our DDR5 inside ports or some of those prior streams to get a little bit more information. For also AMD too, though, there's also very little merit to go over 6000 MT. You can get definitely much faster kits, but my recommendation is, if you're going to buy overclocked memory, then to not go over 6000 MT, because that's really where kind of AMD will do best if you're talking about OC memory. But keep in mind, 6000 MT is still an overclock. It is not, even if you're using Expo, if you're using DOCP, you're still overclocking the memory. That is not the stock default memory speed for the memory on AM5. All right. All right. So let's go into our next new product here. So next new item right here is going to be on the ASUS VU249 CFE Quiet Blue. So this is actually pretty cool. These series of monitors with the actual VU series. Let's go ahead and take a look here at the actual product page. It's got a really nice, of course, set of specifications. So it's 24 inches, 1920 by 1080, IPS-based display, 100 hertz. So that's a nice upgrade. A lot of times in the more kind of entry-based monitors on the market, you're seeing like 60 hertz. We then started releasing a number of 75 hertz monitors, and now here we've got, of course, 100 hertz. You also have support for adaptive sync, USB-C with actually some base power delivery, so 15 watts, which is nice if you want to be able to more quickly charge something like a tablet or like a phone or any number of USB-based devices. It also integrates our new Display Widget Center software, which I really like. The cool thing about Display Widget is that you can control the monitor in Windows. So if you want to be able to adjust like your brightness, change from maybe sRGB mode to like a photo mode or to like a movie mode, different things along those lines, you can do that really, really easily, all within Windows. You don't have to physically touch any buttons on the monitor. So this is where I'd love to see your guys' feedback. Is you can see we have a few different colors. We've got this quiet blue, we've got this oat milk. I really like the oat milk, especially like, again, I think for a more kind of general basic productivity based user that's just looking for something that's nice, clean, got a nice ID design. Those new connections, like I said, with the USB PD support. I also like here that there's no like large external power brick. The power adapter is actually integrated in here, so it's a simple ICE power cable that you just connect to it and you're good to go. And even our warranty, a lot of the more entry monitors on the market, you're generally going to see sometimes maybe like a 1-year warranty. All ASUS LCDs on the market have a 3-year warranty included within them. Okay. But what do you guys think? Do you like the additional colors? Do you want to see these other colors? Because right now we're only bringing in the quiet blue model. I'd love to at least see us bring this oat milk model in. And I do actually like the 2 other models that we have there as well. You can see right here. Let's go ahead and take a look at a little bit of this little video. Take a look at this here. Your 3.5 millimeter, the nice integrated, of course, cable routing design, which I think is also pretty cool. And then, like you said, you can see those really cool, nice colors. I think it's really nice to be able to just see those 2 different options. And you can also note there that we all will be offering even a larger version with a 27-inch. Right now, this is the initial release for the 24, right? And there you can see that's what I was talking about in the OS, where you can make essentially those adjustments. If we go back right there, or was it right there? You can see brightness, contrast, the blue light filter, all of those things. You can adjust that within the operating system, which is a really nice, like I said, it's a much more intuitive level of usability and functionality when you talk about how you can work with your monitor. And this is also part, of course, our sustainability, where you can see the use of post-consumer recycled-based content, not only in the packaging, but even within the housing of the monitor design. So overall, pretty cool. And you can even see some elements that we're doing there. So overall, I think it's a great addition that we have in terms of our lineup for our monitors. And just to call out the colors, again, we've got quiet blue. And then here you're going to have, what is this one? This is going to be a green gray. This color here is going to be the oat milk, and then this is going to be the rose clay. So let me know, would you guys like to see the other colors get released? I'm trying to collect that. We'll probably run a little bit more of a broad community poll and see what people's feedback and thoughts are, and we will go from there. All right. So that is going to be our VU series monitors. Okay. And price, as you can see right there, coming in at $139. Let me go ahead and see some questions. Cowboy was asking, how about an update on the Ryzen water block? I already talked actually about this I think in last week's stream, somebody asked about it. Right now, it's still kind of under design and development. We haven't kind of confirmed that we're fully coming to market with it, but it is something I'd say right now it has a higher probability of actually release. But it's still something tentative. So when we have more information, actually in terms of saying, hey, we're going to actually release to the market, this is all the specifics for it, it will be released in the PCDIY group for sure, and then we'll announce it here on the PCDIY stream, either initially probably with the teaser announcement, and then following up with like a formal release, just like right now we're talking about any of the products that we're actually pushing out in terms of channel availability. Hey, happy birthday, everybody. Let's show some love for Michelle celebrating 47 years young. Fantastic. Happy birthday. Hope you enjoy your Friday and you have a great week with friends and family. Okay. So got some feedback. These would go good with similar colored ASUS NUC systems. Good for office, school use, light gaming. Definitely. I think that's a perfect fit in terms of just kind of general productivity, media use, some light gaming, because you see, of course, that increase in a little bit of a higher refresh rate is also nice. Eric is giving some feedback here. It says, nice colors. Would like the blue in 27 inches. Okay. So Tech Spirit is giving some feedback. I wish you would do that for all monitors, at least make 2 options in default and white and black. Again, that's just, it's not practical. It sounds like it's really easy, but literally it's twice as much production. And some colors actually are really, really challenging in terms of producing with consistency. White is generally a bit more challenging than black is. So even making it across any type of product is more challenging. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky, but it's, yes, I definitely agree, in terms of, we see feedback from people that want more choice, right? TUF 4090 in white by chance. We have no plans to make a TUF 4090 in white. So if you do want a white 4090, of course, we do have the ROG Strix in white. Okay. And thanks to the community for being so great and sending out some birthday wishes to, of course, Michelle. So fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our next product update. And this one's going to be with our ASUS ExpertWiFi, the EBM68 Business Mesh Wi-Fi, excuse me. So this is going to be a little bit different than our traditional networking product. Right now, we have, of course, our ROG gaming product, which would be generally our ROG Rapture gaming series of routers. And then we also recently introduced mesh product with the GT6, which is a bundled pack. And then, of course, we have our traditional ASUS routers. And then we also have Zen Wi-Fi. So Zen Wi-Fi are pretty much all mesh networking products. So that means that there's multiple nodes inside the box. So it could be like 2 units, or it could be 3 units, right? It could be Wi-Fi 5, it could be Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 6E, or even Wi-Fi 7, right? Where these units stand apart is that they've been kind of designed and developed, well, not kind of, but they've been specifically designed and developed really for the kind of, I'd say, semi kind of professional usage space. So small business, small home offices, right? Smaller installations. So it could be things like, small stores, coffee shops, smaller schools, curriculum offices, which are going to probably have multiple nodes for deployment because they need broader coverage. But critically, maybe they need more flexibility in terms of how they set up and control the router. So our current units are really easy. They have lots of robust options in terms of how you can manage and monitor essentially anything that's going on the network. But we've done some really cool stuff specifically for this segment. So one of the things is actually going to be that these units actually integrate what's called a captive portal system. So the pretty cool thing here is that what users can do with the captive portal design is they can go in, they can put in maybe like their logo, their key information. So you can see right here, guest portal. They could click on something as simple as that with the guest portal and load in their credential information. They don't really have to understand anything complex in terms of network topologies or admins or stuff like this. It will create the isolated network, right, for you. Because this unit also supports advanced VLAN management, which isn't something you would traditionally see on normal routers. And all of this is kind of baked in. So it's a really streamlined experience. So for somebody that has like a small office, small business environment, right, they can just go in, set that up, and be able to facilitate easy Wi-Fi for their customers or for clients that might be coming in, especially if they want to isolate them from their own personal networks. If they want to set, time delineations, if they want to have custom pages, which acknowledge maybe certain information or promos or different things like that. All that stuff is baked in. It's a really, really cool level of functionality. Again, it's all built in. And The great thing about a lot of the feature set that's here is there's no additional cost. With some other manufacturers, there could be licensing costs, there could be additional subscription costs, whether it's for the security or for other kind of elements of that. But here, this is all inherently built into the ASUS firmware, and it all consistently gets updated and enhanced also within our ASUS WRT firmware, as well as, of course, within the ASUS router app, which is the way that you can go ahead and control this. One other difference too for these models will be that they support more nodes. So traditionally for AI mesh, most users are going to be like either 2 nodes or 3 nodes, up to probably 5 nodes. But with the ExpertWiFi, we actually support for a much higher level of nodes, where you could go to 6, 7, 8 plus nodes. You have more flexibility. This unit right here is utilizing Wi-Fi 6 and tri-band. And one of the key benefits that you have, of course, with tri-band is that, remember, if you're connecting one router to another router, that's utilizing something that's called a backhaul, you lose one band. So if you had 3 bands, so you had essentially 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz, and you lose one of those bands, you now have only 2 bands. That's the big strength of a tri-band system, is that you can still then offer 2 bands to be able to offer better performance. Now, our units also support a wired backhaul. The wired backhaul is really nice because if you want to keep all 3 bands, you can actually run a wire between the different nodes and utilize the high performance Ethernet connect to be able to, of course, create the backhaul. So you have either a wired backhaul or a wireless backhaul that is available to you, either one of those. And there's also some other cool things here, like outside of course, the VLAN management, you have things like a dual WAN and backup options. So the dual WAN is pretty cool. So it means you could actually have 2 different input sources for your actual ISP. This is actually something we recently rolled out to all of our ASUS routers that support the latest version of ASUS WRT firmware. But you can actually just take your iPhone or your Android phone and via USB cable connect it to the USB port on the router, and you can immediately take then your cellular signal and use that with your router as its actual ISP connection. So that could be kind of useful if maybe you had like maybe an internet service go down in your home and you still wanted your devices to be connected and your cell phone still had that. Well, you're not going to want to hotspot your phone to everything in your house. But here you could actually connect your phone to the router, and your router would actually then be able to facilitate the backup WAN. But you could, of course, also have redundant or other ISP services back up there. So there's a lot of really cool features in here. So if you guys are interested in this, there'll probably be a forthcoming dedicated stream that we'll have that dives more deeply into the totality of our ExpertWiFi. Because with ExpertWiFi, we also have more deployment options, where we have things like power over Ethernet based models. We have dedicated access point models. So there's more options, more flexibility for how these units can be deployed compared to what most people would traditionally do with like a basic router, where they'll just, put it in their office or their living room or somewhere, right? Or maybe they just have mesh. And like I said, they take one unit and they put it on one floor and then the other unit on the other floor, or maybe one room in the living room and then the other one's closer to the bedroom or something like that, right? So this will be the EBM68 coming at $299. This is the 1-pack. And again, with the AI mesh technology support, you can easily add multiples of these to be able to extend the coverage should you need it. All right. All right. Let me go ahead and quickly see any quick questions on that side. So I've been waiting for the EB series of routers. They are all Wi-Fi 7. No, you might be actually confused with the BE series. So BE series would be models like the, if I show you right here, so the RT BE96U. That model has already launched, so that one we already have actually available. That is going to be our Wi-Fi 6E router, excuse me, Wi-Fi 7 router. So like here you can see this is the BE96U. That is a Wi-Fi 7. So any of the models that are going to be in the BE, that would be all Wi-Fi 7. And so we will have quite a number of Wi-Fi 7. So we just launched that model, the BE96U. The next one will be the RG Rapture. We'll also have a Zen Wi-Fi based Wi-Fi 7 model, and you'll see even some other models as we get into 2024 for Wi-Fi 7. Okay. Tech Spirit goes as I would like to ask about the ASUS Moonlight White, when it will be available. So right now, we talked about this actually previously with the ASUS Moonlight White. It's fantastic. That's pretty much kind of like our flagship gaming keyboard, enthusiast gaming keyboard. We have already gone ahead and released that model for limited availability with an initial launch at our friends over at MicroCenter. So that will be finishing up in probably about like 2.5 weeks or so. So once that is available, once that finishes up, then you'll see the actual availability start to roll out then at a broader level of channel partners. So not only, let's say, the ASUS store, Newegg, Amazon, and other e-tailers, but you'll start to see it more readily available. So if anybody's wondering, this is the AOTH. It is, of course, a TKL-based keyboard, 75%. Has a nice gasket-mounted design, has multiple layers of sound-dampening foam. It has our new RG switches, which have a really nice level of stabilization to them. They're even further lubed. You get actually a lubing station with them. You get the OLED Live Dash display. You can see things like, actually, like you noted there, animation, system info, visualization, tri-mode connectivity. So that means you have Bluetooth 2.4 and USB-C. They're all available to you. Really long battery life. We have the highest performance wireless chipset in the market. We've actually done a really lot of benchmarking compared to a lot of the premium independent, I'd say, like custom keyboards on the market that are just now starting to finally see wireless, where a lot of them just used to be wired. The 2.4 gigahertz implementation that we have compared to theirs is significantly better. We offer much lower latency. And critically, one really cool feature of our SpeedNova chipset design is actually our algorithm that we've done for maintaining low latency when you even have multiple devices connected. One of the really cool things that we've gone ahead and integrated within some of the latest generation devices, like the StrixScope 296 and the RG Heart mouse, is the essentially dual connection option. So you can have one adapter for two devices and still maintain very, very, very low latency. I actually dove into this a little bit deeper in a prior live stream. It's pretty cool. But again, yes, your question is when it will be available. It's ready right now. You can order it, I believe, online from MicroCenter if you don't have a MicroCenter close to you. And then if you're looking for, like I said, broader availability, probably in about 2.5 to probably 4 weeks, depending on the e-tailer that you would want to purchase it from. Okay. All right. So that takes care of us there. Let me go ahead and quickly see any other quick questions right there. Cowboy goes, JJ, have a brand new Asus ROG Strix 3090. I forgot I had to do you guys an upgrade trade-ins. Yeah, I know a lot of people that would probably like having that type of option, right? Michael goes, yes, I want the RG Rapture GTBE98 Pro. Yeah, it's absolutely going to be a monster when it comes to Wi-Fi performance. Jake's asking, any plans for an inverted case? I would say no. Our next most immediate case is actually going to be our ProArt case, which let's throw, guys, you know what? Let's throw a little bit of a teaser here. I mean, it's not super teaser. I actually had this plan for the weekend to show off. But you guys, if you guys haven't seen it, in the not too distant future, you will see this. This is our next chassis. This is going to be the ProArt PA602. So this is going to be our essentially addition to our ProArt series of products. So right now we have ProArt motherboards, we have ProArt graphics cards, we have ProArt monitors, and in the not too distant future, we're going to have a ProArt chassis along with a ProArt cooler. And this is going to be an ultra high airflow chassis with some really cool design elements in there, including everything from ultra high flow fan design, where you got 200 millimeter fans on there. That's right, 200 millimeter fans. Okay. Integrated casters for actually being able to move the actual chassis. Top mounting support, which includes actually up to a 420 millimeter AiO, which if you guys can check in there, that is the ProArt AiO cooler. It has a really cool design, and you can see some really cool subtle kind of iconography in there. But to your question, do we have any plans for inverted case right now? No, but it is something that our team has discussed as a potential design point. But right now we have no plans for that. Let me go ahead and see. It says, thanks for the clarification on Wi-Fi 7 and adding Wi-Fi 7 nodes. Yeah, no problem. Any updates on the EVA refresh? No, I haven't actually checked with our PM team. If you have a specific question on which product you're looking for, I'd recommend posting in the PCDIY group and tag me in the group, and I'll check to see if I can check with our team on when we might be seeing a refresh, if we're going to see a refresh. Keep in mind the ROG Evangelion release is limited production. So for some of it, once it sells through, that's it. It's gone. It doesn't get produced anymore. And that's kind of the whole point. You kind of got to get it when it's initially available. But some of the products, we will have refreshes for them. And I believe we've already had at least one refresh for some of the components. So again, if you have a specific component in mind that you're wondering about, tag me in the group and I'll attempt to find out If you're outside of North America, I can't help you. You have to reach out to ASUS in your region. But if you're in US or in Canada, then I'll do my best to find out in terms of if we will get a refresh in that respect, okay? Lanos, he says the grade modifiers look really good. Man, happy to have you here, Wes. Thanks for joining us here on the stream. All right, fantastic, very cool. All right, let me go ahead and see. Very nice. I like it. Yeah, I think it looks really, really nice. H2O Computers goes, oh, I love that ProArt chassis. JC goes, the ProArt chassis looks familiar to something around the house. Interesting. I think you might guys have to watch and see what he's doing. Alex gives some feedback. He goes, that's nice and clean. Yes, it's really, really nice. Beautiful. Yeah, the airflow looks amazing. Good for power users rendering. That's kind of the whole point, right? ProArt is designed for creators, people that are doing, everything from DaVinci Resolve to science and simulation, animation, photography, advanced workflow. So we wanted to design something that was kind of just an out-of-the-box experience that, hey, if they have multiple GPUs in there, if they got a lot of M.2 SSDs, they're running high memory density configurations. This is just bringing in a huge amount of airflow. There's also a really cool design. I'm going to give you guys one other little teaser right here. So let me just wrap it up here before I get to the next product. Let me give you one other cool little design point for this chassis. Let me see here. So one really cool feature that we integrated here is going to be this design. Let's show you here. So if you guys take a look at this, and let me remove this just so nobody's confused behind that, right? But when you install your graphics card, sometimes some chassis will sometimes have some form of a little bit of a retention mechanism where the GPU will kind of stay in place. But other times you kind of have to make sure you have your screwdriver, and you have to have the thumb screw, or you have to have the screw, and you have to have everything ready so that the graphics card doesn't like droop a little bit or drop off or something like that. So here we want to try to even make it a little bit more streamlined, a little bit easier for the builders. So you'll actually see here that there's an integrated kind of locking system for the actual graphics card. So if you'll take a look right here, you can see that you pretty much take that thumb screw, open it up, and you'll see that that's actually integrated with the latching and the locking mechanism. So you'll open that up, you'll put in the graphics card, and then you'll lock it in place. And now the graphics card is mounted, and it keeps a nice, really rigid, clean, consistent way to be able to install your graphics card. And you don't have to kind of do that two-handed approach where sometimes you got to hold the graphics card and then I got to get my screwdriver and be able to mount everything in. So again, if you kind of see that much more seamlessly, there it comes all the way through, it comes together. Pretty cool, right? Let me know what you guys think. Do you like that design? Do you think it's pretty cool? There's a lot of other really cool things actually that we have on the ProArt chassis. We'll be talking about that as we get closer to the launch, which is not too far away. We'll probably be getting ready to launch the ProArt series products probably later this month. So stay tuned in the not too distant future for that. All right. So let me see right here. JY is going, is there a specific date for the release on the new Rapture? Not yet. So just make sure to keep it tuned. As soon as we have kind of initial visibility for when we will release the product, we will be releasing that in the ASUS PCDIY group and definitely here on the stream. Still tentatively, possibly this quarter. But again, I don't want to give you a specific date and have that potentially change. Like I said, just make sure to keep it tuned. The PCDIY group is where you will find out about things first and foremost before anywhere else. Okay. Have we considered some sort of pro speed partnerships? Yes, we actually do already lots of esports partnerships with lots of different esports teams. H2O Computer goes, I dig that feature. E-Rock is also giving some love. He says, I like it, right? Tech Spirit says that's a very smart way to hold the GPU. And Jake also says, yeah, I like that very much. And Chris also notes, yeah, it's a great design. Very, very cool. Michael goes, that looks familiar. Nice. I'd love to see that on a updated or a redesigned GR701. Well, that's always about kind of trying to involve, kind of design and features, right? So now that's going to kind of be like the Q release of motherboards, right? Like the moment that we put that on there, now everybody's like, that needs to be standard. Just like when we invented, integrating the IO shields on motherboards, it started on like one motherboard and now it's like, on 75% of the motherboards, right? So yeah, I can definitely see where something like that becomes something that everybody wants to keep seeing on, any chassis that we design moving forward, right? So let's go ahead and round things out. So we talked again about, as a quick recap, our TUF Gaming graphics card 4070 Ti in white. Then we, of course, have our ExpertWiFi, right, which is going to be coming in at $299, our mesh networking solution. And then we also talked about the ASUS VU series of monitors with the Quiet Blue model coming in at $139. So let's wrap it up here with the ASUS ExpertCenter PN53. This is coming in at $960. Remember also, when we talk about our mini PCs, we always have essentially two versions. We have what we call our bare bones version, and then we also have our, we have our bare bones version, and then we have our systems-based version. So the bare bones version means that you pick the mini PC and it has the CPU already integrated into it, right? But you will pick your memory, your storage, your operating system, right? The system-related version comes with everything. It will come with the mini PC, the memory, the SSD, the OS, and that CPU. So we will generally always sell two versions, the bare bones version or the system version. This is a system version variant of the PN53. Okay, let me bring this up here. All right. So here you guys can see that. Let me bring this up. So this is one of my favorite models that we have in terms of the Mini PC series. It's very impressive in terms of its overall feature set. So if you guys haven't seen essentially kind of a Mini PC recently, the performance that really we've been offering over the last few generations is really impressive. You're talking about units that are effectively in the same kind of wattage class that you commonly see a lot of times in laptops. So you're talking usually between like somewhere like 15 watts to up to maybe 30 watts in terms of the CPU's performance. These are the modern generational core versions. So we have everything from 13th gen enabled mini PCs to here you can see Ryzen 7000 series mini PCs. So very performant. You're talking about pretty much kind of laptop, desktop level performance here. You have robust support in terms of the memory, the storage. You can see right here that this unit will support two PCI Express NVMe Gen 4 M.2 based SSDs, 2.5 gigabit LAN, and Wi-Fi 6E, and actually support up to 4 displays. This is also a really cool feature here where it supports not only DisplayPort, but power delivery input. The cool thing about that is that means if you connect it to like one of our monitors that has like 80 or 90 or 100 watts power delivery input, it can actually power the mini PC and receive the display signal in one single cable, which is pretty sweet. So that's another kind of cool level of functionality that these units are now integrating in, is having USB-C connectivity as well as even USB power delivery. So again, when we take a look at the spec right here, also even have ultra high speed DDR5 is being integrated into these models, right? Which is quite impressive because it also means that it brings up the density support. So these mini PCs now can be running, 16, they could be running, 32, they could be running 48, they could be running 64 gigabyte memory configurations and even higher in the future, which is quite impressive again for these ultra small compact systems to be able to have that level of performance. And definitely with this generation, it's quite robust in terms of the performance set. So in terms of the connectivity, you can see again USB-C right here, supporting DP. Then you've got high-speed Type A ports there on the front, your power and your LED. 3.5 millimeter jack, which serves as a combo jack, so microphone, right, or headphone out, as well as line out, hard drive LED. Then you have dual HDMI. The configurable port will vary depending on the model you pick. Most of the time in our region, we usually will have that be a display port connection, but always check the spec for what the configurable port will be. Because as you can see right there, we can have pretty much lots of different options, right? We could have it be a DP port, an HDMI port. We could have it be a serial port, right? It just depends. Additional USB-C with that display and that PD input, Type A, Type A, Type A. So that's a lot of high-speed connectivity, and then 2.5 gigabit LAN, as well as your barrel jack, your DC power for the most stability and the highest level of performance through the external AC adapter. All right, so that is going to be the PN53. Really, really nice unit. Again, here, if you're maybe doing something like maybe a home lab, maybe you have a CNC production machine, maybe you just want to have a small compact system for web browsing, media consumption, maybe you want to do something with some transcoding for something like a media box or like a streaming box. This could also work really, really well for that. Proxmox, VMware, there's a lot of kind of really interesting scenarios. The last thing that I'll talk about, which is pretty cool, is we redesigned not that long ago the mini PC thermal solution to even be more performant. But one of the cool things that we did here is we actually took some of our kind of design learning from our laptops, and we created kind of this secondary tunnel And this kind of chamber, this tunnel design that you have in there, it actually accounts for the density difference in particulate. So when you get like dust, debris, dander, different things that come in there, they actually will settle into the end, right? That end chamber, and help to be exhausted out the system. And that's important that, like in a really compact system like that, you want to mitigate that stuff from kind of building into the thermal solution and affecting its cooling performance over time. Now, that's not going to bother you like in the first month or the second month, but 6 months, 8 months, 24 months down the road, having that buildup of that particulate could cause a reduction in your thermal performance, because the thermal solution is a little bit more impacted essentially by dust, debris, dander, different stuff that kind of gets in there. So that is also something we've done. We also did integrate new, more even advanced fan controls there. So people have now multiple profiles that they can select to go through and even fine tune the thermal performance for their mini PC. So that is the PN53. Let me go ahead and check. I actually already noted there. You can see the CPU in question for the model that comes there. That's going to be the Ryzen 7735HS. So let's go ahead and round it out there just so you guys can see here some performance on this part, so you have some reference. So we can actually check right here just how performant of a part that is. So here you are talking about the 7735HS. That's 8 cores, 16 threads. As I noted, right, that TDP there, 35 to up to 54. It's conditional, right, because it's depending on the package design and some other factors right there, right? And you'll see the clock frequency right there, up to 4.75 gigahertz, right? And if you take a look at the rest of the spec right there, it's quite healthy. So that is going to be your Ryzen 7 7035HS. All right, so pretty cool. See right here. Michael goes, add-on GPU? No, there's already an integrated Radeon graphics. For most of the time in these mini PCs, people don't generally like go with like an external graphics card. There's a lot of latency issues also with actually Thunderbolt. A lot of times, even though people talk about like using like an external eGPU, it's not that elegant and it doesn't actually work as well. It's actually part of the reasons why on models like the Flow and even the ROG Ally, we came up with our own XG Station interconnect, which used a much higher bandwidth PCI Express connection, especially when you kind of are alt tabbing between different environments, and the bandwidth and latency and just even the experience of the system recognizing the external GPU. We've found actually personally that works quite a bit more smooth and effectively. But definitely for this segment, this is not really something that you would be focusing at, having an external GPU. If you really, really, really wanted to, though, we do have models. We have mini PCs that are equipped with USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4, and you could utilize an external eGPU if you really wanted to. But again, I think most situations, what would make more sense for utilizing that high-speed I/O would be for external accessories or accelerators. So maybe if you wanted something like a 10G add-in card, maybe you had like an M.2 expansion card where you wanted more external high-speed storage, right? Or even maybe a specific GPU accelerator, or maybe like an HDMI capture card, right? There could be other kind of things there. Is that an APU system? Yes, because it has Radeon integrated graphics, right? It has Radeon graphics built into the same core. Okay. Okay, very, very cool. All right, guys, so I think let's get into it now for our coolers. So let's get into the TUF Gaming coolers. We're going to have 2 coolers. We've got the TUF Gaming LC360 ARGB, and then we also have the TUF Gaming LC240 ARGB. So one's going to be coming in at 120, and then you can see the other one is going to be coming in at 150. So I've got a cool little video here, and then, of course, I have the model right here to jump into, but let's go ahead and take a quick look at a little video for this for this cooler. And here you can see, of course, it has that revised design. One of the big elements is, of course, it features a decoupled pump. I can generally tell you it does actually allow for a little bit of a noticeable reduction in terms of that immediate noise from kind of the immediate, surrounding area from your CPU section. Definitely, with the latest generation pumps, whether it's 7th gen or 8th gen from ASUS, they're actually pretty quiet, and you have a lot of customization in terms that you can go in and you can define the actual pump speed. But here, definitely, this is, I would say, very quiet out of the box. You don't even have to kind of tune it, where I think sometimes on maybe the other ones, if you have a really sensitive ear, you might actually want to tune it. I really also like the square pump housing design. The PVD coating that we also put on the actual pump housing is quite nice at not only protecting it from scratches, but it gives it a nice kind of sheen to it that I think looks quite clean. And we've upgraded really kind of the totality of all of the elements on here. So you have 27 millimeter base radiator, 360 millimeter base radiator. These are new fans, which actually are even more rigid. They have a higher level of static pressure, higher level of airflow, enhanced actually brightness for the actual lighting patterns. And like I said, the tubing has also been increased. This is 400 millimeter tubing, so it should be nice and long to be able to give you a lot of flexibility in terms of getting it installed in pretty much just any chassis without too much of an issue. If we take a look right here, this is going to be our TUF Gaming GT502 chassis, but just kind of giving you an example of kind of a system as it would be kind of set up in there. There you can see the GT502. The cool thing there, of course, is you have flexibility in terms of how you can mount the GT502, right? You could actually go up here on the top, but you can actually go all the way into the back. So you actually have a lot of different ways that you can mount into the GT502. But this would also be an example of kind of like how that TUF Gaming ecosystem could look really great together. But of course, you don't need to pair anything up. Nothing is proprietary here. I think compared to sometimes some other units on the market where you have to use like a USB header or you have to use a controller for the fans or something like that, this is really, really going to be straightforward. So you're going to have one cable for the pump header. That's going to be one just single 4-pin AiO pump cable. So that would just go to your AiO pump header on your motherboard. You then have, of course, there's an included splitter cable, which will, of course, take your 3 fans, and they'll allow you to run that to one singular CPU header. And then you also have another included splitter for the ARGB cables. And those are all standard just 3-pin ARGB cables that you can plug to any 3-pin ARGB header on any motherboard. So yes, of course, this is great if you want to use it with an ASUS motherboard, but if you don't have an ASUS motherboard, it's quite okay. You can, of course, fully use this. It's fully compatible with any other manufacturer on the market regarding their motherboard designs, and you're good to go. And of course, the mounting hardware that comes included with this fully supports AM4, AM5, and pretty much all the recent Intel-based sockets. So across the board, you have full interoperability and compatibility, okay? So let's go ahead and do a little bit of kind of some demo. Let's take a look at kind of some of the performance, and let's see how it ultimately kind of, again, kind of comes together here. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at just some quick images, I think, for the TUF Gaming LC2. Let me bring that up here. All right, yeah, 360. All right, here you guys go. So this is going to be the 360. Again, really, really nice, clean ID design. I really love the compact head on there. It has, of course, the updated TUF Gaming logo design on there. And then there's just a little bit of accent lighting that's on the side of that pump housing, okay? Like I said, the decoupled pump, the PVD lens, 400 millimeter base tubing. You can see some nice metrics right here, 2000 RPM. Static pressure and airflow, I don't focus on those too much. It's relevant to note those values, but of course, you always want to keep in mind that when you see those numbers advertised, that's usually going to be rated for when the fan's at 100%. Most people are not going to run their coolers at 100% because it definitely is going to be on the louder side. Now, this being 2000 in terms of the max RPM, it's actually going to be pretty quiet even if it was at 100%, but most of the time, you're probably going to be in a fan curve range of probably much lower value, probably like 600 to probably about 1400 RPM. And that's actually something where these fans are quite a bit nicer than a lot of the other fans that sometimes are bundled in. Some manufacturers don't support ultra low RPM levels for their fans. So they might kind of go down like at around like 900 RPM, but our fans actually can drop down much, much, much lower. So if you really want to be able to have a very quiet system, that is an actual advantage. There's all your mounting, of course, hardware, all the accessory hardware, and you also get your TUF Gaming stickers. So that's going to be inside the box. And the warranty is also pretty nice there. If you didn't notice there at the beginning, it's a 6-year warranty. Some of the comparable units on the market might be 5 years, 4 years, or 3 years. So 6 years, it's actually almost class leading in terms of kind of this price segment for the AiO unit. All right. Looks like thin fans. They're not slim fans. You have, of course, thick fans. So something like a ultra thick fan might be something like a D30 from Fantex. That would be a really premium, very expensive fan. You wouldn't generally see that on something like an AiO. These are the same type of fans you would traditionally see in making sure that you have clearance. And they're very much balanced, I think, for the cooling performance. And like I said, we're going to show a demo here to be able to kind of take here a long time, right? Hey, Pidgey PCs, happy to have you here, man. Thanks for joining us here on the stream. Okay, and just for reference, I want to show the 240. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the 240. And 240 is it's going to pretty much look the same. It's just going to be smaller, so shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But if we want to just go ahead and put them side by side, let's go ahead and put just a side by side so we can see them. All right, so there you guys go. You can see the 240 and the 360, right? So those would be the two. And this will round up kind of our current range of AiO coolers. So we'll have the TUF Gaming LC2, which makes up our entry. Then the next model up would be our ROG Strix LC series. With the LC2 series, we have a 240, 280, and 360. They come in white and they come in black. Then we go up to the ROG Ryu series. The Ryu comes in 240 and 360, also comes in white and also comes in black. And then our flagship model, which is going to be the Ryu Gen 3. The Ryu Gen 3 comes in 240 and in 360, and it comes in white and it comes in black. Plus, it also has the Noctua edition based fans. So there's even another derivative in the black model where there's black with ARGB that has the daisy chain magnetic fans. And then there's the actual standard version, which has the same screen, the pump, the cables, everything's exactly the same. It just comes with Noctua IPPC based fans. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and quickly see right there. What's the price of the 240? Yeah, let me go ahead and bring that back up. The 240 right here, 240 is going to be coming in at 120, which again, I think for the performance we're going to show you, it's very solid. It's actually pretty close to the performance that you'd have even like the Ryujin. The Ryujin is even going to be higher performing, but the Ryujin is a lot more expensive, but of course it has daisy chain magnetic fans. It has, of course, an LCD, right? It has a lot more as the VRM assist fan. So I think this is quite reasonable, especially also because 240 fits the biggest amount of chassis, right? From mini ITX to micro ATX to compact ATX chassis, 240 is going to be pretty easy. And also that nice decoupled base design also is kind of a nice benefit in terms of reducing the kind of pain points sometimes on mounting, where you have to consider about having where your pump is mounted. Having it decoupled actually is going to almost always isolate you from having to have as much kind of potential issues on terms of where you may mount the AiO. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into this and we'll take a look. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my second system. For reference, if you guys are wondering what's the demo system look like, I've got right here, this is going to be a 13900K. And then it's on a Maximus Z790 board, but the board doesn't really matter. We are going to run some overclocking, but I've actually done the same kind of test and demo here on a TUF Gaming Z790 series, but it's not really a big factor. Memory, we just got some DDR5 on there. I think this is Kingston 6400, which would kind of be in a line. I think 6400 is pretty price reasonable. It kind of would go on there. I think probably CPU-wise, if you were kind of one of those min-max people, this would be perfect to pair with the 1300K or 1400K, but probably a lot of people would probably be looking at something in that i5 or i7 bracket to also kind of complement this, right? Rounding it out there, Thor power supply on there, definitely more than we need. This is a 1200 watt. And then I'll probably throw the GPU on there. So I've got a TUF Gaming 3080 for kind of the GPU reference, right? So let me go ahead and get the connections up here and we'll take a look. Okay. And if anybody has any other questions, feel free to go ahead and drop them in there and I will go ahead and check them out. All right. Let me go ahead and shut this down here. Alex goes, the magnetic fans on the Ryujin 3 was a great idea. Very simple and satisfying. I wish we could buy those fans separately in 140. Yeah, I know a lot of people wish that we had those fans available separately. It is the daisy chain and the magnetic design. the fact that you can take that one single cable and put it on on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side, and like I said, just have that one lead which carries then the ARGB and then the lead that carries the fan. It's really nice. It's really convenient. And those fans are also really good in terms of the actual performance. They have a really nice ring barrier. They have really nice lighting. Yeah, it's a great design, but definitely would be a lot more expensive to put something like this. It would considerably increase the price point. That being noted, I can tell you we will be releasing ROG standalone ARGB fans, but right now I don't have the specifics for it. I'm not going to tell you the timeline. I've seen the developmental samples on it, and they absolutely look fantastic. They're really cool. Some really cool stuff that we're going to be doing there. So those will be coming later, but nothing to tell you right now in terms of any details on that, but they will be coming. Okay, so let's go ahead and just throw our GPU on there. Get my second keyboard there. One more keyboard right here. Dual claymores. How many claymores do you have? One claymore and another claymore. All right. Okay, there we go. There we go. And let's go ahead and power that up there. All right, let me see any quick questions that kind of came up right there. Will those standalone fans have the daisy chain magnetic function? I'm not going to tell you. You're just going to have to stay tuned. Rest assured, we will let you know that information when we're, of course, ready to talk about it. So all I can just tell you is, yes, we are working on a standalone series of fans to follow. Right now, we do have, of course, the TUF Gaming fans, which we have in black and we have in white. They're really good fans for the money, their price point, especially if you talk about the quality of the bearing in those fans. It's almost unmatched. Most of the manufacturers are using a far lower performing bearing, and we have a really, really nice bearing that we're utilizing. So yeah, but those will be coming out, like I said, at a later time. Okay, so let me go ahead and I guess just set everything over here to defaults, and we'll take a look and we'll jump into some gaming. So let's go into the OS. Go into the UEFI. We'll load our corresponding defaults, and we'll go from there, and we'll take a look at that. Jack goes, no Claymores, but I have 3 Falchion 65s. Oh man, fantastic. I love the Falchion. Is it the first generation Falchion, or is it the newer Falchion Ace? The Falchion Ace is even nicer because we improved the stabilizers and you did the sound dampening foam, and you had also the newer switches that came in there, because we originally launched the Falchion with the cherry switches, and then we had our ROG switches. But any which one of them, they're all nice. I use actually the Falchion for a really long time here in the stream because I love it, because it's nice and compact, has the little cover, USB-C, has a 2.4 gigahertz, has the touch bar. And I can tell you later on, we're going to be doing even some more cool stuff on more keyboards. So always some cool stuff coming in from ASUS. So we're going to go ahead and just default our system. And I guess from the overclocking test, we'll see what it goes. So let's go kind of for absolute kind of baseline in terms of overclocking. So let's go with our disabled all limits. We'll go from there. So go there. We'll load up into the OS. We'll do a quick check on our speeds. We'll then enable an OC, and then we'll go ahead and we'll jump into a game, and we'll take a look at what our temperatures are with an overclock. Because I think for some people, right, there's a big discussion saying, well, a 1300K or 1400K is too hot, right? Even for a 360 millimeter AiO, so there's no point in doing that, and there's no point in overclocking. And I think here what I want to show is we can take our CPU, we can overclock it, we can jump into a game, and we can have really, really good thermal performance with this AiO cooler. Now, of course, here we're not inside of a chassis. We've done simulation and testing inside of a chassis, and this would still hold true even if you were inside of a chassis. My ambient right now, I think, is 74, probably about 74 degrees right now in here. Just for kind of reference, but again, this is an open air test bed, so it's always going to be a little bit better than if it was inside of course, a chassis environment. But we'll get ready to kind of jump into this here. So let's go back into our desktop. We should be back in there. And then Jack notes the new one with brown switches. So you like the tactile. You're a tactile user. I'm a linear guy. I don't like noise on my keyboards. I like to have my keyboards be as quiet as possible. I'm not even team Thok. I don't even want any Thok. I want as quiet as I can get on my switches. So yeah, like on my AOTH and on my Flare 2, I was very picky. I swapped out my switches and I went with the absolute quietest switches that I could have, because if I'm working, I just want to hear myself think. I don't even want to hear the keyboard, right? All right, so let's go ahead and bring in our base numbers here. So we're going to go ahead and open up XTU. You can use a lot of different applications for, of course, your checks, but XTU is quite easy in terms of just being able to reference your kind of core data. So let's go ahead and take a look at it right here. So let me guys know if you can actually see this, or maybe we need to do magnifier, but I could probably do it this way. So let's open up ShareX. We'll do a screenshot here. So we'll do a screenshot. So there we go. And we'll go ahead and now open up this file to make it probably easier. All right, so here we guys go. So we're now at our stock defaults, okay? So that's gonna be 58, 58, 55, 55, 55, 55, 55, 55, right? So overall, I mean, that's already a very good performance, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's very healthy level of performance, right? And even if we went crazy and we went with an unrealistic workload, now this is kind of the important thing to keep in mind. When you talk about gaming is generally going to be somewhere usually about like 70 watts to upwards of around probably 200 watts for most games. Synthetic benchmarks can, of course, use much more power than that, right? Where you could be going into 225, 250, 275 watts or higher for these kind of synthetic stress tests. Now, if you're somebody that's doing professional workloads, right? So you're running, heavy rendering, you're running batch conversions, you're doing science and simulation, things along those lines, then yeah, you might want to be more mindful of those kind of key scenarios. But for gaming, you shouldn't necessarily be using that type of workload to represent what your thermal experience will be like, because one, the amount of power that you're going to use under gaming is going to be very different. And the reason why that's important is because if you're going to limit your frequency of your performance based on a synthetic workload, you're actually going to allow yourself to have a much lower level of kind of overclocking headroom, because you'll think that I don't have the ability to overclock because I'm already essentially thermally maxed, if that makes sense, right? So a good way that you can, of course, monitor that is I have XTU right here set to give me a lot of data points. And if I go ahead and open this up, I can see right here, let me go ahead and check a couple of these off, a little bit more. So I have a lot of readouts here. This is giving me my package, my CPU utilization, my memory, my package TDP, my core TDP, max frequency, all the frequencies and all the voltages, frequencies and temperatures per each one of my CPUs, right? Well, per each one of my cores, okay? So from here, if I wanted to kind of check the data, right, I could go ahead and load up the game. But we're going to do that actually when we get into the overclock, and I'll show you some other kind of before and after. But if we wanted to look at kind of like a worst case scenario, let's go ahead and just look at like a worst case scenario here. Just to show you, because some people, they have to see a more synthetic stress test, right? So let's go ahead and use OCCT. They have a very dedicated, of course, option right here with the CPU. So we'll use the CPU stress test. Now, ideally, if you wanted to have like a more stability in the thermal result, you would pick steady here, and then you would pick extreme here for like the worst heat soak. But this is already going to use 100% utilization, and this will probably be at least a little bit closer to more of a general kind of application than it would be a pure synthetic stress test, right? And so right now the fan profile is also set to standard. I don't have the fan profile set to full speed or even turbo. I don't know if you guys can actually hear it as it's gone ahead and ramped up. But right now it's still quite moderate. But you can see right here, as we've gone ahead and now kicked it in, and of course all the cores are being utilized, we can of course confirm that. So let's go ahead and go over to our task manager. Of course, though, you can see though the data is loading up right there as well. You can see our CPUs. If we go over into our logical view, all the CPUs are, of course, all the CPU cores are being utilized, all the threads are being utilized, right? And here we can already see our max. Now, usually after a minute, I like to reset this and then monitor it after that. It won't really matter though. The main value that you really want to look at over the period of time is going to be your average, right? Here you can see your average is going to be the more important temperature. And already, of course, this is going to be lower than, of course, the current value. You can see the current value 73, 69, 75, 74, 79, 76, 78. That's already quite good, right? Already for a 360, that 1300K under 100% full utilization under that CPU stress test, that already results quite solid, right? But the big thing to keep in mind is this is still much more demanding than a game. A game will still be utilizing quite a bit more. So here you can actually see the CPU package power. CPU package power, right? We've got 220 watts, right? That's what you actually want to track for. And a pro tip for those of you that are actually checking temperatures, a lot of people will only check temperature to temperature. So they'll get a cooler, they'll swap out the cooler, and then they'll see what's my temperature. You actually, that's not the best way to check performance, because just because something is actually lower in temperature doesn't mean that you're actually getting better performance out of it. In some ways, it seems counterintuitive, but what you actually want to track is all three values. You want to actually track your package power, how much power the CPU is using. You want to track the actual temperature, and you want to track the frequency, because you could actually find a cooler that could have maybe same or worse thermal performance, but it's actually dissipating more heat and allowing for actually the processor to boost higher. So it's important, if you really actually want to check effective CPU performance with a new cooler, you actually want to track those three values. You want to track temperature, you want to track frequency, and you also want to track power. All three of those points are actually those values that you actually want to take a look at, right? So again, we can see right here, it's already been running that 100% load for a few minutes. And we can see the value again, 74, 73, 77, 77, 80, 78, 78, 78, and then we can see CPU package at 81. So overall, that's quite nice in terms of the temperatures. But let's go ahead and kick into the overclocking. Let's look at some gaming and see what our values are going to be at, okay? So, and again, here you can see the cool thing is if you use something like the XTU and you can set it to log, you can have this really cool graph, and you can then go and you can immediately check all the values. So you can see right here, like here's the recent minimum, there's the maximum, and there's the average. So we can see the average temperature so far was 57 degrees, right? We can also check things like the max core frequency, right? So we can see the highest was 5.5 gigahertz, right? No thermal throttling. And frequency, if we go to our P core, our primary P core, we can see 5.5, right? So I really like kind of looking at those data points. And you can set it to a log, right, where you can go, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever you want, right? But let's enable AIOC. Let's do some overclocking. So we're going to go here. We're going to turn it on. And I don't think I've run it on this CPU before. This is one of my other 13900Ks. I don't remember if I run it on here before. So I don't know actually what we're going to get. Oh, wait. Actually, no, I have won it once before on this one, so we should actually get pretty nice. I think on this one we should get 6 gigahertz out of the CPU. All right, so we're going to go ahead and enable that, and let me go ahead and while it just quickly reboots, let me see what we might have popped up in terms of questions. JY goes, what is the respective max CFM? Yeah, let me go ahead and show you those values. I can show you the max for that. Keep in mind the max CFM is you're running the fan at 100%, right? So most people are not going to run the fan at 100%, right? But let me go ahead and show you. So here you go. Max is going to be 2000 RPM, right? And then you have 3.0 in terms of your static air pressure, and then 67 on airflow. It's actually pretty solid, especially compared to some of the other models in this price bracket. You'll generally notice that they probably have a little bit of a lower static pressure level and a bit lower CFM. There's even some models I'd say are sub 50 CFM. So this is actually a really nice balance. These fans, I'll legitimately tell you, they are very solid fans for the performance. So sure, you could upgrade the fans to even get more airflow, but kind of for ARGB fans, really kind of the best are starting to get around that 65 to 70, 75 CFM. So you're already really doing really solid in terms of airflow. Static pressure could be a little bit higher, but even within this space, to get that much more static pressure, you probably have to go to a ring barrier based fan, and you would also probably go into even a thicker frame. And the cost increase would be quite sizable, right? Just one of those probably fans is probably going to cost you $20. So 3 of those fans, that's $60, right? So you can see how that increases the cost considerably, right? Let me go ahead and see. How good is the thermal paste already on the ASUS AiO? No, you definitely don't need to worry about replacing it. It's quite good. I can tell you I've done a lot of comparative benchmarking in terms of thermal pastes. We'll actually be releasing an ROG thermal paste in the not too distant future. But I've talked about this a lot in the past. So just for reference, this just bin right here is just all kinds of thermal paste. Here's our friends over at Noctua. You've got NH2. I've got TF9 in here. I've got MG Chemicals, MX4, Gelled Extreme. Here's the actual TUF Gaming. The TUF Gaming one's cool. It comes in this little TUF Gaming little syringe, right? All kinds of different ones. The reality is, yes, some might even be a little bit higher performance, but you unquestionably do not need to change the thermal compound. The performance results that I'm showing you right here, this is all from the TUF Gaming thermal compound. So this is not from an aftermarket thermal compound. You don't need to change it out. And I would tell you, if you bought a Ryogen, if you bought a Strix LC, if you bought a Ryu 3, there's no reason to change that. The thermal validation that we do already in terms of the pump out, the dry out time, the overall performance in terms of its conductivity performance is already very good for those thermal compounds. So you do not need to. Now, if you really wanted to, go for it, but you do not need to replace the thermal compound. There's no reason for you to stress about that. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and go that. E-Rock Go says, have you tried cryo sheets? Yes, I've tried sheets, different types of pads. They're convenient from the perspective of like, you don't have to kind of worry about cleaning up the thermal compound, although that somewhat, I think, varies depending on the viscosity of the thermal compound, right? Thermal compounds that tend to be more viscous, actually, they're a little bit more liquidy, but they're easier, right, to kind of sometimes clean up than kind of the more firm or kind of like stodgy type of thermal compounds. But you do lose off a little bit in performance, but I would say if you're talking about gaming, that's the thing. If you're not overly focused on just pure thermal performance and you're willing to give up a few degrees, the convenience and the ease of utilizing a sheet is actually quite nice. So I'm not opposed to them, but also they are fairly expensive proportionally compared to the thermal compound, right? So, yeah. PGPC goes, can confirm this. The paste on my ROG Ryogen 2 360 was on the same performance as my Thermal Grizzly compound. Yes, I can tell you we spent a lot of time in terms of that validation, so it's not something you have to worry about. Okay, so I think it should already, of course, rebooted. So let's go in. Let's take a look at our results here. All right, so let's take a look at our overclock, guys. Okay, so let's bring up our XTU again. And here we'll bring up, this is our course, our before. All right, and so here we can see, so actually I should have gone back and defaulted the BIOS to defaults because we had it actually set to enforce all limits, but that's fine. We'll just keep it at that for right now. Okay, so there we go. Now let's open up our second. So there we go. So this is going to be our ASUS AOC result. And this is based off actually the cooling performance of this cooler, where I've been running different stress tests and different games on this 13900K with the cooler. So it's going, because of this cooling performance, I'm going to give you this overclock. And then we're going to jump into the game and we're going to show the temperatures with the overclock engaged. Okay, so let's go here and show, excuse me. All right. All right, so let's take a look here and see what we got. So pretty nice, right? And we can see right there. So there is our relative clock. So this was stock, right? So that was just pure defaults, and we saw the thermal results pretty much in that scenario. So 58, 58, 55, right? And then here, now we have 61, 60, 60, 59, 57. So that's pretty nice, right? We went from essentially the all-core overclock, we went up 200 megahertz, right? And then as you notice, as we moved up into some of the additional cores, right? So we can see right here, at 5 cores, we actually went up 4 bins, right? So we went up actually 400 megahertz, right? So that's pretty sweet. And then, of course, on our primary cores, we went up 200 megahertz and 300 megahertz respectively. The other cool stuff is we still use an adaptive voltage policy. So all of this stuff, you're still going to be able to have your frequency drop when your system's not doing much. So right now, if I go ahead and I check everything, right, even before I get to checking the performance, right, let me go ahead and just drop that down. If I go ahead and, let's say, open up my CPU-Z, and let's go ahead and get our reporting window back open here for when we run in our test. Here you can see right there, if I don't look at anything, you'll actually see that the voltage there, it's gone ahead and the frequency drops down. It's 0.826, 0.737. So we're still using an effective and efficient adaptive voltage, which is really, really nice at maximizing things. But let's go ahead and now take a look at our temperatures. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and load up a game here. And we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and bring up Final Fantasy. We'll do the benchmark here. Final Fantasy is a pretty good engine in terms that it focuses on a fairly lightly threaded, right? Most games tend to be more lightly threaded than heavily threaded. We're starting to see some games start to use a bit more threads. So like Total War absolutely will hammer tons of threads. Cyberpunk is pretty also heavily threaded, but like Far Cry, take for instance, or like Assassin's Creed or like Spider-Man, they're actually very lightly threaded. So you actually want to be able to take advantage of getting more performance through your overclocking, right? So we've got our temperature logging right now. We can see what we've got here. So let's go ahead and let this run for a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and load that up there. It's going to run through and we'll go ahead and see what our results are going to be here in a little bit. And again, I'm leaving this just running right now with the default, right? It's running with just our default in terms of the fan profile. So I haven't set it to like turbo or full speed. Of course, if we even have higher fan speeds, then you would, of course, be able to go ahead and even see lower temperatures. But I want to kind of just give something representative of what a lot of normal gamers would do. I'm just going to install this. I'm going to leave it set to standard. I'm going to run that. And then I just want to see what my temperatures would be. And I don't want to have to customize. I don't have to play around with fan curves. And here you can see the system is quite quiet. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the mic. You might hear a little bit of muffling, but I'll go ahead and kind of do a little bit of flyover of the system with essentially, you can see we've got at 6.1 gigahertz overclock on this 13900K with the TUF Gaming LC running, right? And the system's effectively almost inaudible, right? So right now I'm going to be quiet, let you guys hear. Let's go ahead and take our mic here. And normally you would also get a bit more, sometimes noise, a little bit, like I said, from that pump head. If those pump heads, especially if they start to get over like 1600, 1800, 2000 RPM, you can definitely start to hear a pump. Definitely if you're over 3000 RPM, you can definitely hear the pump. But all right, so you guys can pretty much hear the TUF Gaming LC2 360 is definitely doing its job. It's keeping the system quite nice and cool in regards to, like I said, the temperatures we're going to see here in a moment with, like I said, this overclock. But you could also hear, like I said, it's effectively very, very quiet. So again, even though you're talking about a pretty low price point, these are our cheapest coolers that we're going to have in terms of the market, in terms of AI solutions. But even compared to a lot of the other AIOs on the market, if you talk about the warranty, the cooling performance, the design, I think it's a really solid value in terms of what we're going to be offering. And again, this is pretty much one of the fastest things you could be cooling, right? Like I said, a 13900K. I think somebody asked if you could use this, of course, for AMD. Yes, these are fully compatible with AM4 and AM5. So you could run this to cool a 5800X, or a 5950X, or if you want to do something like a 7700X. Yes, you could entirely cool those as well. So yeah, you're fine in that regard. Okay. So I'm going to let it run for maybe like another couple of minutes just to kind of get a little bit more heat soak, right? I want to give it the opportunity to kind of run through and do its little bit of its thing. So while that's running through, I'll just go ahead and let's see if we have any other questions from anybody in the community on anything that might be coming up. If anybody has any questions, I guess I saw somebody had a little bit of a response here from the thermal compound. So Tech, let me go ahead and get my mouse back over here. Tech was going, oh, ROG thermal paste? That is correct, ROG thermal paste. So let me switch. I think this shouldn't affect the output, so we should be okay. But let me go ahead and show you guys. I can show you a little bit of a teaser. I've gone ahead and already shared this with the PCDIY group. I have all the images here, but I can't show you guys all the images. Okay, we're not ready to launch everything yet. Okay. So let me go ahead and bring that up. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. Here you guys go. It's coming. There it is. ROG thermal paste. ROG. It's coming. Are you going to be ready? And for those in the PCDIY group, I'm working very hard. I'm going to probably try to do a little bit of a community seeding program in the PCDIY group. We're definitely going to be working to actually sample this out to reviewers. So I think we already had a couple of reviewers joining us, right? There was eRock that was here. We had LAN-OC, so maybe both of them. PGPCs, maybe all of them. H2O computers, maybe let's get you out some ROG thermal paste. You guys can share your thoughts in the community. I can tell you, it has already been validated by our world-class performance R&D team and our OC team, and we're very, very happy with the results. So I think it's going to be a great addition. Again, there's a lot of great thermal compounds that are already on the market, so I'm not going to say that this is better than other products because there are lots of great thermal compounds, and you should kind of pick your thermal compounds based not only on your budget, but sometimes your preference of your application. Like I said, some are going to be more viscous, some are less viscous, some have longer times, but you might have to reapply. There's a lot of different kind of factors that you kind of want to consider. But from just a performance perspective, this is definitely going to be a high performing quality based thermal compound. So if you're interested, also being a member of the PCDIY group, I think probably for the launch, we're going to definitely do some giveaways and we're going to do some sampling to the people in the PCDIY group. So if you're not in the PCDIY group, then you're definitely going to want to be in the PCDIY group to be able to take advantage of that for when we launch that. Okay. Hey, Mods by Ben. Looking good. Hey, man. Fantastic. Thanks for having thanks for joining us here on the stream. Alex is giving a thumbs up there. E-Rock is like, I'm here. I'm here. All right. Skeets goes, don't tell me the box comes with ARGB. No, there's no ARGB lighting. Nothing there. Okay. Skeets goes, is this better than Noctua NTH2? NTH2 is really nice. It's a solid compound. It's actually, I think, a little bit easier to spread than some of the other thermal compounds. It has like a nice balance where it's not super viscous. Like if I went like the extreme of something that's really, really easy to apply, but it's also a little bit on the runny side, something like GD900. I really like GD900 because let me know. Okay, we're almost finished here with our temperature results. But for you guys, how do you like to apply? Do you apply doing a pattern? So whether that's like your X or, pentadot or whatever your fashion is, or do you use a spatula? For me, the way I've done it actually for years, and it's my preferred method, although sometimes I can't do it with every thermal compound, because again, I've got probably about 30 thermal compounds here. I use all kinds of different types of thermal compounds. I generally, though, like actually using my finger. So sometimes I'll use a finger cod, and sometimes I'll just use my finger and I'll clean it up afterwards, because I like to just evenly spread it across there and get it uniform. So my actual preference is finger with a finger cod, right? Or like I said, using a spatula. Stencils have also started to get a lot more popular, right? Stencils are, I think, a pretty nice option that work pretty well. And if you guys have seen prior teasers for the ROG, maybe or may not, maybe ROG thermal compound might have a stencil. I don't know. We're just going to have to kind of see. So what is the feedback here? For thoughts on the group. So Michael goes, most thermal compounds have the same properties. I would actually not say that that's not correct. I wouldn't say that's correct. The properties, the polymers and the matrix composition can actually vary pretty big, and the proportions of some elements can actually be quite different than others, right? So while you can have a lot of similarity where you can have things like boron, or you can have other pieces in the totality of there, the percentages actually can make a pretty big difference between, like I said, something being like more viscous or less viscous, right? But in terms of, there's only so many which ways to make it. That is correct, right? But there's actually, I think, a pretty big variance in terms of the overall compositions, especially if you account for their percentages, right? So kind of off topic, but the RG packaging is incredible. The textures on the boxes and even the manuals makes you keep the boxes for display. Maybe that was your intent. You 100% are correct. There's actually something that we call a CMF. So I'm going to answer this question, and then we're going to jump in to check our temps. Let me see if I have this here. I did this post a while back in the PCDIY group where actually I talked about this. But our product management team and our ID team, when we're doing a lot of the design and development for the product, including the packaging, we do something that is called CMF-based design. And some companies that are smaller probably don't really do this. They kind of just think about things. But we really actually have a pretty advanced team, because our ID team is a world-class team that come from so many different industries, whether it could be architecture, landscape, engineering, fashion, different types of design firms, right? And some of them are coming straight out of university for design. But here's an example of kind of CMF design for something like a mouse, where you can see that we isolate almost every single component, and we're evaluating, hey, different materials for different textures on how you might feel about it when you're touching it versus how you're looking at it. And that's even translated also in the package, like you said, where sometimes we have something that's really smooth, or it's like a little bit embossed, or it has some sheen to it. And I think people would generally tell you that, yeah, ROG packaging is probably, I'd say overall, maybe the best in the industry when it comes to kind of the polish and the fit and finish in terms of how they look. But here you can see the color groupings break things out, where it shows you, hey, this is going to be this black polished ABS material. Here we're going to use actually a gray slat spray paint, which is going to be a different material, right? This is going to be flat matte, and this is going to be rubber, right? And all of that goes into how you ultimately feel about when you kind of touch or experience the product. So I'm really happy when you say that. And I also know from a lot of people in our community, PGPCs for one is somebody I know who's noted in the past, H2O Computers, and other people have noted that same thing. Like, hey, when they get that new Maximus box, or they get this box and they kind of feel this or do this. And it's interesting because we've had discussions about it on maybe we should scale down the packaging, because sometimes some people go like, am I paying more for packaging? And to some degree you pay for that, right? But a lot of people, they like that premium experience, especially for that premium product. So as we're actually scaling back, I think certain packages for some products from a sustainability factor and for more environmental friendliness, we're also attempting to kind of still find where that right balance is at maintaining kind of premium design details and packaging for things like ROG, right? So let's see what the feedback was from the community here. Jake's now 96 says, I spread with a spatula. I've used the spatula a lot. Tech Spirit goes, X works best for me. The X is a really good, I think, consistent fashion. It works pretty well. So H2O Computer goes, I spread my paste. Fist bump, H2O Mike. Yeah, I agree with you. I do that too. I just spread it. I like just being able to take it and spread it to that consistency across there, right? And then Michael goes, love the RG packaging team ASUS. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. All right, guys. So we've had it running there a little bit in terms of the overall temperatures. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what those are there. And okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at our temperatures. So we've been letting it run for a little while, right? Gaming. Let's go ahead and exit out here. All right, so we've got XTU. We're going to go ahead and bring that up here, and you can see how it's been logging all that information. Again, remember, if we take a look at our OC results, right, what do we have? We have here our 13900K, which has been overclocked, right? So 6.1, 6.1, 60, 60, 59, 59, 57, 57. So that is our OC that's in place. Now here under a gaming workload, we can go to the core package, and let's take a look and see what our peak was. So the actual maximum, so the maximum right here was 73C, okay? And then we can see the actual average, though, was 45C under gaming. So that's why I talk about it's important to not limit your overclock based on a synthetic workload, because we can see when we're actually gaming, that temperature is really nice, right? This 360 is doing a great job at keeping our CPU cool when we're gaming, even with that 6.1 overclock. Now, if we take a look at it, again, here, when I was talking about understanding your power when you're gaming, take a look at that power envelope. We can see that the recent maximum was only 99 watts when it was gaming, right? Versus, remember, when we ran the stress test was over 220 watts. So it's literally like running two games simultaneously, that heat load, right? And that power load that you're putting on there, that you're saying you want to use that as a way to judge the thermal performance, which, again, it's a valid data point, but is it actually representative of what you're really doing? You're not gaming when you're running Cinebench, and you're not gaming when you're running OCCT, right? So here you can actually see a more representative value of really what you're doing, right? And let's go now here to a max frequency. We can see our max frequency, 5.97 gigahertz, right? So quite nice. Of course, no thermal throttling. And if we take a look here at our peak temperatures for the peak core 0, right? We can see the maximum was 69 degrees, but the actual average was 41 degrees during that gaming session, right? So when that gaming was running. And again, peak core frequency 0, we can see we did get all the way up to that 5.94 gigahertz. So quite a bit up, right? We're seeing that literally a legitimate almost 500 megahertz bump in our overclock compared to the stock configuration, right? Which is already quite cool. So overall, very, very good cooling performance. And again, here, the system, I only have it on the standard fan profile, right? So if we go back over here, 2 Armory crates, so that if we wanted to kind of change the fan profile settings or anything like that, we can go ahead and tweak that. But you can see there was really no reason for me to even go up and kind of increase the fan cycle to a higher level, because you could already see the cooling performance, which when I gave you guys a little flyover in terms of the cooler, it was already really quiet. So there was no reason for me to kind of put it into turbo or put it into fan speed. And you can see here, right, this is the fan curve that we had. And we were probably, like I said, somewhere, I would guess if we tracked it, probably somewhere around like 1200 RPM. So effectively almost silent, right? So very, very, very quiet in that respect, right? But here, let's just go to 100%, so you guys, I guess, can hear how loud they would be if you wanted to run them, I guess, at 100%, right? So we can go to that. And let me also go ahead and just show you guys some of the different patterns here. So if we go through some of the different lighting, so we're going to go and we'll go into our rainbow, and we'll light it up there. We'll go into a little bit more dynamic just so you can kind of see that. And I'll show you actually maybe with a little bit of close-up of the cam so we can see kind of that RGB lighting and flare there. But here you can see, if I go ahead and bring up my mic, they're definitely audible, but they're not crazy loud. Even if you were in a situation that you wanted the kind of the highest level of cooling performance, right? They're not super loud. So it's a nice balance of, sure, you could have fans that were like, even 24, 2500 RPM, right? But are you going to ever run them at that point? Because at that point, it's like, sure, you could even get even more cooling performance, but it's going to be so loud that you wouldn't want to. To me, to be honest, even if I put that inside of a chassis, if my chassis was a little bit away from me and I was doing a lot of heavy work, I might be even okay running these at 100%, because I wouldn't feel that that's too kind of crazy loud, if that kind of makes sense. But for me, I'm very much fine with kind of the standard airflow, the airflow, the static pressure, and the cooling performance that we had with everything at standard, right? So some feedback there from, let me go ahead and see here. JC says, family pack, please. Yeah, so I guess that's the other thing. When you guys buy thermal compound, which is what you're buying most? If we look at kind of the volume in the market, most people are usually going to be buying something somewhere between probably about like 2.5 grams to probably like 7 grams is usually going to be in that range, maybe 8 grams. So do you guys tend to buy more than that, or do you buy less? Let's see how many enthusiasts we have here. Somebody like JC, he's going like, nah, if this is less than 25 grams or 100 grams, I'm not even playing with this, right? I need more than that, right? So we'll kind of see there, right? Michael gave some feedback as well that he spreads. And Mike goes, the TUF Gaming AiO looks awesome, right? And Michael will give some feedback. Those are some nice results, if not great. I agree. So let's go ahead and just kind of look at here at that kind of worst case scenario. So we'll load it up here. So now we are overclocked, but we're running, of course, the 100% load. And we can see right here the CPU package power. It's a little bit lower, which makes sense because, of course, we're overclocked. It's hedging it a little bit, right? And that's the reason why I said you also have to always account for, don't monitor just your temperature, right? If you compare a cooler and you just say this cooler's this temperature and this one's this temperature, you're actually not looking at all the data. And you always want to look at what's the package power, what's the frequency, and then what's the temperature, right? But you can see here, even under this 100% load, which was, of course, quite a bit more demanding than the game. Again, remember, when we looked at our game data, right? Our game data, we saw it was only 99 watts, right? The maximum that we saw under gaming, right? But here you can see now we're over double. It's literally over twice. So it's literally like running 2 games simultaneously, right? But we can see CPU, of course, is at full 100% utilization, right? But you can see, yes, we are running the fans right now at 100%, but you can still see the temperatures, even now for our overclocked configuration, is still quite good, right? You can see in the mid 70s with that at 100%. So even in either scenario, it's still very, very solid kind of cooling performance, right? So let's see some feedback here in terms of the thoughts. There was 5-gram tubes for me. Michael goes 10 grams. And then ProMediaTek Nano is kind of expensive. Yeah, ProMediaTek is a little bit more expensive. I think it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, I think for the ProMediaTek, it's almost like, is it $25 or almost like $30, right? It's there. It's up there, of course, with like, stuff like Thermal Grizzly, some of the really kind of premiums, right? As far as kind of the offerings, right? Very good performance, though. The ProMediaTek is very, very good in terms of thermal performance, right? Okay. So let me go back here, just go big, and let me close out of this. And let me reduce my fans here, and then I'll just cycle through some of the lighting so you guys can kind of just see some of the lighting here. All right, so there you can see there's the nice kind of ARGB. Looks quite nice. I'll get a little bit of a closer shot here at the pump head so you can kind of see the pump head. But overall, it's nice, bright, clean lighting that we have there on the fans. Let's go to a different pattern here. Go to maybe pick a different color scheme, maybe here, just to kind of see a different version, and then maybe we'll do a different one. Just because it give you a little bit of a different color scheme. Starry Night. I always like Starry Night. Starry Night's a nice one for me. So we can go to random. And Starry Night, you can, of course, have some flexibility. You could go with a random, which would change the colors as you see them right now, or you could go with a fixed color in the background and then an alternating color change, right? I usually do kind of just no background color and then just a singular color. So I can show you an example of kind of the Starry Night there. So like here is with the TUF Gaming, which is the one that I originally had. So let me go with something, I don't know. Let's go with green. Green's cool. Okay. And we'll take a look at the pump housing. So let me go ahead and get a shot there of the pump housing. And before we wrap it up, if anybody has any other questions, just let me know if you had any other questions. Okay. Yeah, 5 grams is 27. That's about right. Yeah, like I said, I was pretty sure it was somewhere between like $25 to $30, right? Mike goes, big P in the center always. Yeah. Big P in the center is not bad. Just a big kind of amount right there. And then just, good contact pressure will help to generally spread it out. I would prefer more like, like pended out, like putting in the corners and then letting it kind of spread out. Although sometimes that can kind of sometimes go a little bit over. But that's why, like for me, I said in the very beginning, my favorite method is I manually spread. I just take a finger cod or I take my finger and I just spread it out evenly. And that's my favorite way to apply thermal compound. All right, let's go ahead and get my second cam here so I can show you guys the pump head up close. And the feedback, what's the question right there? For the brand, is it possible to buy the Helios front glass? No, you can't just get the glass panel by itself. You can't just buy that by itself. Okay. For the brand, I go Thermal Grizzly or KPS. Just hate the. Okay. Is somebody? Sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, sorry to hear that that happened as far as it breaking. Yeah, there is. Yeah, we don't sell it independently. We don't have just them by themselves. All right, guys, going to show you guys this pump head, and then we're going to close things out. Get my second cam over here. There you go. There we go. There you guys can see that pump housing. It's quite nice. Like I said, it has this nice PVD coating on it, which is the nice thing about the PVD coating is compared to sometimes with some other ones where they're really hard to kind of clean or they scuff, you can actually kind of really just touch this and it's entirely fine. And then if you want to clean it up, you can just take a kind of smooth, just nice cloth. But you notice there, even it's kind of hard to notice even any kind of fingerprints or oils from there, but it's very easy to clean up. So that is the housing. And then right there on the side, you'll see that there's also just a little bit of kind of nice, cool little kind of accent perimeter lighting. But the pump housing is also really nice because it's nice and quite compact. So it's really nice for maybe like a smaller build where you don't want to have anything kind of obstructing that immediate surrounding area. Okay. Oops. All right. All right, so I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up for our stream today, guys. Hopefully you guys found that pretty cool. We did the live demo there. We did some overclocking, showed you how you can have a really great experience with the TUF Gaming LC2, even when we have our overclocked 13900K, 6.1 gigahertz and whatnot. Let me go ahead and just see if there was the last question right here. So why no after sale spares? So yeah, that's something we've kind of evaluated. Part of it is just a balancing act of kind of carrying a lot of other logistics when you bring in so many kind of sub accessories like that or kind of part replacements. It can be quite challenging from an inventory management perspective, but it is something that we've talked about with our team and our service support team to attempt to try to pick certain items. Now, the front panel is very rare. I haven't actually had anybody else that's told me that they broke that front panel, but we are kind of looking at trying to figure out what might be kind of the right parts to attempt to have available from a parts replacement perspective in the future. So it is something that we're discussing internally, but right now we don't have kind of a definitive kind of lock-in date to say, hey, we're going to start offering this as we move forward. Because a great example of this is like with the AP201, our small micro ATX chassis. We originally launched it with no tempered glass side panel, and then we came out with another version that had the tempered glass side panel. And there were some people that originally bought the first one and they're like, I just want that tempered glass side panel. Can I buy it? And you can't buy it standalone. So we are aware that kind of in some of those situations, and even for maybe some of the future chassis and stuff that we're going to be doing, that there's interest for some people to have access to that. So it is something we are, again, are evaluating and taking a look at. All right. All right. So overall, I think that wraps up our stream. So thank you guys so much for checking it out. Again, if you have any other questions, concerns, feedback, feel free to go ahead and check us out in the ASUS PCDIY group. It's a great community we have. Everybody else that is enjoying their Friday, stay safe, stay healthy, have a great Friday night, and have a great weekend. We'll catch you guys next week. Take care. Take it easy.